I got so excited I read right through the third lesson. It's a wonderful story. It's a story that brings grace to a Christmas Eve. And we do come here for wonder and grace because we do come, the truth be told, out of a very violent world. We do. And that's the truth of it. We come for joy and out of hope. And to be sure, I hope you find that, and I know you will. I pray that you will. But let's tell the truth. We come with a sense of grief. The last 6 months have not been easy, and we know it. Police violence against black men, and I heard that there was just another incident in Missouri today. And violence against the police. When will it stop? And then there's violence across the seas, terrorism that seems not to stop. And if we really tell the truth, it's been going on ever since 9/11. And then if we tell the full truth, we have just lived through the bloodiest century in humankind, in human history. 2 world wars, a Holocaust, genocides, endless regional wars. Your notion of God that will sustain you in the midst of all that kind of violence is awfully important. And that notion has been challenged mightily in the last century and a half. So much so that theologians have gone about a veritable revolution, a kind of deconstruction of their notions of God. That may sound surprising to some of you, but our notions of God are just that. They're notions. They're notions that humans come up with to try to get at the mystery of God. And we've done a lot of deconstructing and constructing. In fact, the theologians, at least the ones that I read, talk about their projects as a construction project. An interesting notion, isn't it? Trying to construct God in the midst of evil and suffering. It's the problem of theodicy. Really, it's the problem that we're dealing with tonight. It's the problem of evil and suffering and a belief in a God who is powerful and loving in the midst of it. Brings up all kinds of questions and quandaries and puzzles and deep ponderings that have caused a revolution, as I've said, in our understanding of God and who God is and what God might be about. But the truth of the matter is the Bible started it. Because the biblical story that we just read is a theodicy. It's a justification of God. It's a notion of God. It's the construction of God in the midst of the evil and suffering of the ancient world, the evil and suffering that they knew so much about, as much as we do, maybe even more so. So if you are like me and you've been thinking about violence, you've been thinking about God and what tonight is about in the light of it all, then I invite you to ponder a simple notion tonight. A simple notion that the Christ child was laid in a manger. It's a remarkable thing. Mysterious, deep, puzzling in the extreme. That Luke would suggest that the God of all creation would rather be born in a manger than in an inn or in an imperial palace. Does that make sense to you? It did to Luke. It did mightily so. You know what a manger is? It's a feeding trough to feed animals. That's what it is. That God was born in a manger is an amazing thing. And it gets at something deep about God that I want to get at with you all this morning. This evening, I want us to ponder that. There's another notion that theologians have talked about with incarnation that I think is relevant to this scene, this manger scene that has shepherds and a stable, and Alice left part of it on the floor. What is that? It's a bowl. That's a bowl. And the other is an ecological reading of the incarnation. What theologians suggest is that God didn't just become human, but God became a mammal. Think about it. God became a mammal. We might call it a higher mammal, but God became a mammal. And so there were animals at the crest seam, a deep connection, one with the other, a deep connectedness to the earth. Incarnation carne means flesh. It can also mean meat, as in chili con carne. You get it? God made meat. God made flesh. God made a mammal. And suffering all the stings and blows of what that means. Scratching out an existence. Understanding that one day, yes, finitude will catch up with me and I will die. That's what it means to be a mammal. That's what it means to be human. It means that there are stings and blows that come our way, and Jesus knew that. The story of Luke tells that part of the story. It juxtaposes the emperor, the Caesar, with a manger. It's a strange juxtaposition, but you see it's a foreshadowing of what would happen to that child. Because that child, as we know, would run afoul of authorities and be crucified, a most gruesome, torturous way to die. And so it's a foreshadowing of all the above. Exposing something that is so deep about God that it is hard to fathom, that God is a God of love and not violence. That's what it's about. And that's what incarnation is about. That's what the manger is about. And so we're invited to this manger scene. Others have been invited before us. There are legends that have grown up around the manger and those who came to him. One suggested that a stranger, today we'd call that person a homeless person, spent the night with Jesus the night he was born and then took off at daybreak. Another legend says that an escaped slave took refuge in the stable with the animals, with Jesus. Another legend says that a child was abandoned there when Jesus was born. An infant was abandoned there with Jesus. Now, to be sure, no one would take comfort in their plight, but it does comfort me to know that this is a place where all are welcomed. All. And that means you and me. That means if you feel separated from the divine love, and who doesn't? If you feel betrayed by that love, this is a place where you can come. This is a place of safety. This is a place of peace, a place of reconciliation, a place of interconnectedness with all of God's creation. There's an ancient philosophical and religious principles which suggest that if you touch one thing, you touch all things. Have you ever heard that one? It's profound and deep. If you touch one thing, you touch all things. It's very much like Martin Luther King when he said, injustice everywhere, one place is a threat to justice everywhere. If you touch one thing, you touch all things, because creation is interconnected. It's a whole. And that means that all is also present in the one thing that you touch. And that's on grand display here this evening with the manger. That all things are connected deeply in that one place, that manger with those animals, with a bull and sheep and shepherds, lowly servant people. The lowliest people on the face of the earth were shepherds in the ancient world. It's true. The interesting thing about the manger is it is a feeding trough. And some of you may know that Luke, the Gospel of Luke, has a special appreciation for food. The aroma of food is on every chapter in the book of Luke. In fact, Jesus is always eating in the chapter of Luke. He is criticized for the way he eats. He eats with outcasts and sinners. And in fact, some people say that Jesus was crucified because of the way he ate. If it's true, it all began in a manger with the acceptance of the outcast, the acceptance of slaves, the acceptance of an abandoned child, the acceptance of the lowliest people on the face of the earth. Maybe the lowliest parts of us were accepted and brought to grace at that place. There is another legend that I really like. I just found out about it today. Looked up legends about those who came to the stable and the manger. This legend is traced way back. Leonardo da Vinci talked about it. He was pondering a sketch about a cat that was in the manger with Mary, and the cat gave birth to a litter of kittens. Now, that may sound just downright silly and strange to some people, but you know, Paul, the apostle, picks up on this in the book of Romans when he says that all of creation is groaning with labor pains for the love of God. For the love of God. It's what we all desperately yearn for. It's what we bring to this place. It's what we bring to the manger scene, a feeding trough, a place of nourishment, a place of nourishment on the love of God that is deep and deep in the creation, a love that refuses to give up on any of us, on any piece of the creation, even a bull. It's the place we come to on a very special night like this and ponder a God who is vulnerable. Not a God of power and might, but a God who is vulnerable. A God in a child who could do nothing for himself but really depended on us. The only thing we can do is to receive the gift. To receive the gift of love and peace and joy, as so many down through the centuries have received that same gift, from bullies to beggars, from charlatans to wise people, to you and me who are puzzling about the universe and the violence in it, wondering if in fact it was created by a love that will not let us go. We are invited to this place of deep, extravagant love. Invited to ponder the God who was birthed in the most unlikely of places, a manger. Amen.